TX Factor is brought to you in association with Martin Lynch & Sons, the world's favourite ham store, and Yaesu Muse & Co. Japan.
Hello, I'm Mike Marsh, G1IAR, and welcome to TX Factor, the only TV show dedicated to amateur radio. TX Factor today is at National Hamfest in Newark, and we've got our very own stand here today alongside Martin Lynch & Sons, and we've got our very own TX Factor goodies as well for the show.
How much are your mugs?
Well, they're £5 each, but if a member of the TX Factor team signs it, £3?
Bargain. I'll have one. Thank you very much. There you go. Pleasure doing business with you. Well, I'm very pleased with that. That's my first bargain of the show, and I think there's going to be a few more during the course of today. So let's see what else there is to see here at the National Hamfest 2014.
In this episode, we hark back to the days of AM and investigate some antenna technology. The hearing dog who's cute and smart. Bob attempts a fashion statement on the Yaesu stand. And we meet the man who's sleep deprived to bring us Hamfest. Oh, and also the man who asks the question that could win you a Yaesu VX3 handheld. Steve tells us Ofcom employees are human and licensed amateurs, and the rig with a Midas touch, bling bling. Some funky antennas from Scotland, and of course all the latest news from Apple.
One thing that's fantastic to find at a show like this is a mobile Radio Shack, and not one, but two with some pretty impressive antennas. Rob M0 VFC from Cam Hams is here. Now, you guys get out and put on demonstration stations all over the place, don't you?
Yes, I think we last met, in fact, at the Youngsters on the Air event, GB1 YOTA. And we're a group of us from sort of around the Cambridge area, although we do have a few members who travel in from a little bit further afield. And basically we just like going out and playing radio. We're very fortunate we've got Flossie, the van that we're sitting in at the moment, which comes complete with a 20-metre mast. But really we just enjoy playing. So we've got a few stations here that we've set up today. We've got, just behind yourself, we've got a 6-metre station. Here 15 metres and also 40 metres, and then in Jeff G0 DDX's van next door we've got 10 and 20 metres. So try and put on a reasonable show. We're running the special event call sign Golf Bravo 14 November Hotel, GB14 National Hamfest, and just try and get the word out about the event, and hopefully even if people can't join us here on site today, they can feel part of the event and hear a little bit about it.
At an event like this, though, you're preaching to the converted. Do you also put on demonstration stations to introduce people who don't know about amateur radio to amateur radio?
A little, and most of what we do tends to be focused on the existing amateur community. But we've done a few bits and pieces, and as a group we have also a lot of overlap with several other organisations that tends to get us out in the community. So for example, a lot of us work with one of the local community radio stations, Cambridge 105. And so the van is very often out in slightly different clothing. It goes a little bit more green rather than blue. And becomes an outside broadcast studio, and inevitably that leads to a little bit of discussion and expanding the virtues of amateur radio and letting people know what it is we do. But also we always encourage people to come along and visit us whenever we've got a station on. One of our more regular sites that we tend to activate for a contest point of view is on a fairly sort of busy road, and we've actually had a number of people just stop by, pop in, stick their head through the door and find out what it is we're up to, and indeed some of those have then gone on to get their licence, which is fantastic.
You certainly can't miss the antennas. You've got some pretty impressive antennas. Does all this gear belong to Cam Hams?
Most of it not, actually. So we tend to run things very informally, so the vast majority of the kit we use is just belongs to the members. The antennas, for example, we've got a 15-metre 5-element Yagi up on one of the masts out there. That was built by Colin G4ERO. He sat down, he decided he wanted a 15-metre beam, so he started with Pop YU7EF's design, but then engineered it himself and came out with a fantastic looking beam. It's really been doing the job this morning so far into Japan.
I think it's great because this is the true spirit of amateur radio, isn't it? It's just getting out there, having fun. And by getting out portable with kit like this, you can do stuff that you couldn't necessarily do at home, because it might be a bit difficult to get a mast up this big with that size 15-metre antenna on without getting the neighbours up in arms.
Absolutely. So at home, my back garden is about 10 metres by 5 metres if I'm lucky. There's no way that I can get anything like we have here. But by getting out portable, we can just, spread our wings a bit, have some fun. And also by being somewhere a bit quieter, RF-wise, and putting on a decent station, it means we can give everyone else who is at home in those less than ideal QTHs, it means we can give them a chance to work us, hear us, be heard by us, and get the station in the log.
Hi, Stuart. How's it going?
Yeah, fine, lovely. Yeah, we're just communicating with our regular Saturday morning VMARS net. That's the Vintage and Military Amateur Radio Society. Quite a high noise level at the moment. Lots of activity going on in here in the hall at Newark. Lots of plasma screens, etc. Modern equipment. But as you can see, this is wartime equipment, Collins equipment.
So what exactly is the transmitter and receiver?
A Collins TCS13 transmitter and receiver. They're not actually belonging to me. They belong to our publications editor, Bronick M0DAF, who's very kindly put them on here. We've had the assistance of Cam Hams, who gave us an antenna. But we're just waiting to communicate now with a couple of stations on the VMARS net. One of whom is extremely strong, and that's a guy in North Wales, and I'm hoping he's going to come up on frequency shortly.
Fantastic. Yes, I've listened in on this net many an occasion and joined in myself as well on a DX100U from time to time.
Oh, excellent. Well, I've got a DX100U at home, and I know that many of our members have, and it's a very nice radio.
Good, right, we'll stand by and see what we can work in lovely AM this morning.
A Mike Whiskey Zero X-Ray Hotel Oscar. This is G0 TBI portable, and I'll give you a rundown shortly of what's happening here at the Newark Showground.
MW0 XHO, taking it from G0 TBI at the Newark Showground. Very nice to speak to you all.
Well, we've come back inside the main exhibition hall, and I'm now with Ian, Mike Zero, Yankee Mike Kilo, who's the chairman of VMARS. And Ian, we've got some more venerable equipment in front of us here.
We have.
And for you guys, that's what it's all about, is getting this old kit up and running, but not just as something to look at, as something to use on the air.
Well, it's one of our main objectives, Bob, is to keep this equipment operating. And over the last 10 or 15 years, it's surprising how much interest there has been from existing amateurs. They're pulling this dusty equipment from under benches and out of lofts and basements and things, wondering if it's still working, but not realizing that there's still quite a big group of us who are using this equipment on a regular basis.
I've taken part in the AM net regularly in the mornings. I have to confess I haven't got an AM rig at the moment, but what I love about it is that when you've got good strong signals, it's such a lovely sound because you hear people sounding like themselves. A very different experience to SSB, isn't it?
Couldn't agree more, and that's one of the things that all our members love, is the sound of AM. But we're not just about transmitting on AM. A lot of our members are building AM equipment, modern equipment in some cases, but we like to restore old equipment and keep the techniques alive. And some of those components as well that maybe are getting a little bit rarer. It's harder these days, for example, to get hold of transformers for power supplies, whereas not so many years ago there were all this domestic radio and television equipment. You could pull these components out and use those.
The other reason I think that people love this older AM kit is you can work on it and look after it and maintain it yourself. It's a bit like I used to have an old Morris 1000, and I used to love servicing that because I could get in and do stuff with it. With a modern radio, it's like a modern car. That's often not really an option, is it?
No, not as far as I'm concerned, and I think a lot of people really don't have the knowledge to get into modern equipment now.
It might be easier to maintain though, but it is a bit more dangerous. It can bite very hard if you're not careful with it. So what we're hoping, I suppose, is that, for example, how old is this radio?
This is a wartime radio. This is a Collins-built ART-13, US Air Force, fitted on B-17s. But I think they went well after the war as well in some civilian airlines. So, yeah, pretty old.
So 70 plus years old. Let's hope that it's still working in 70 years' time, thanks to VMARS.
I'm sure it will be.
Still to come on TX Factor. Mike gets all social with Heather from the RSGB. We sell a few mugs, and Bob wonders if Father Christmas really is a radio amateur with a big heart.
When you come to a show like the National Hamfest, it's easy to forget the huge amount of work that must go on behind the scenes across a long period of time to make this happen. A man who's only too familiar with how much work is involved is Mark Holmes, M0ZLE, chairman for your sins of the Lincoln Shortwave Club, who put this whole thing together. How's the event been for you this year, Mark?
It's been really good, Bob. Hugely busy. For us, from Wednesday we all start setting up here at the showground. A lot of club members arrive at about 9 o'clock on the Wednesday morning, and we haven't left since. So we're still here, and it's been an absolutely wonderful time. We enjoy it. It's a lot of hard work, Bob, but we hope we make the day for everybody.
It is a fantastic event, and we're lucky that you guys are willing to put in the effort for the rest of us hams. And I think as the support gradually increases for it each year, and it gradually gets bigger, and it attracts, more traders, more societies, it's becoming a must-come-to event on the ham radio calendar, isn't it?
What I'd like to say, and if I can say this, if people have got ideas about what they want to see at the National Hamfest, then if they would get in touch with us and let us know, and we'll see what we can accommodate. But we do try and make something for everybody, yes.
And also, I suppose, there are organisations out there who are constantly thinking to themselves, well, how can we get our message out to the amateur radio community? Come here and be a part of this event, because it is a great opportunity to showcase what you do in front of thousands of UK radio amateurs.
We literally, over the couple of days, have thousands of people come to this event, and they can either exhibit here or come and show off their club stands. There's dozens of club stands inside the main hall, Bob, that they can show the world now with people like you what it is that amateur radio is all about here in the UK.
So at what point do you get to relax? At the end of the show, do you get some relaxation time? I suppose you've got to take everything down that's been put up for the show and then start planning for next year.
Relax, absolutely, yes. We stay on and we carry on in clearing up the main hall, and I suspect most of us will get home somewhere around about midnight tonight, when everything's nice and clean here, and we hand the big showground back to the owners. In terms of relaxing, I can't wait till tomorrow morning, to be honest.
I can have a lay-in.
I can have a lay-in, yes. There's been some very early starts. We've been camping on site. A lot of the guys and girls have been camping on site. So it's early start for us, 5 o'clock in the morning on show days, to get things ready for the traders, the car booters, and of course the visitors to come in and enjoy themselves.
Well, on behalf of everybody who's been at the show this year, thanks very much for all the work you do. It is the thing with amateur radio, isn't it? Every small club, every society does rely on those volunteers that make things happen. And the best way that we can say thank you to people like you guys is by supporting the event. So we'll definitely be here again next year. Thanks very much.
That's great, Bob. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us, Mark. We really enjoyed the weekend. Crinkly antennas on TX Factor, and that's coming up next. It's a nice day outside, the bands are dead, so it's time to fly your very own quadcopter. The latest craze is now more affordable with the DJI range of ready-to-fly quadcopters from Martin Lynch & Sons. The Phantom 2 Vision Plus is the latest model in the range, with 14 megapixel 1080p camera and 3-axis stabilized gimbal for precision flight and stable hovering. Your flying camera comes with tilt control, GPS autopilot, radar positioning and return to home, all out of the box. See the entire range of DJI quadcopters and accessories on the Martin Lynch & Sons website and set your spirit free. This is a mug. It's not just any mug, it's a TX Factor Shack mug. Do you love the ham in your life enough to buy him or her one for Christmas? They make an ideal stocking filler and perfect for holding tea or coffee while you search for that elusive DX. If you'd like to buy one and have it shipped to you by Christmas, visit the TX Factor website and click on Store. Go on, you know you want one. But then again, it's just a mug.
You know, you see some really funky things when you're walking around a Hamfest. I found Victor now, who's got some crazy looking bits of gear up in the air behind him. What have we got here, Victor?
It's fractal magnetic loop antenna, which is working from 20 meters to 10 meters. Very efficient for small garden, balcony, loft, or small space, which ham radio people never have.
And looking at the construction of them and the kind of thickness of the materials you've used,
yes.
I'm guessing you can run some fairly chunky power though, even on an indoor antenna.
Yeah. It's take 400 watts because it's made from good grade aluminium with capacitor space up to 7 millimeters between plates. It take 400 watts, no problem at all. It means you can use transceiver themselves or plus amplifier.
And how do these suffer from issues like background noise?
It's the magnetic loops. It's called high Q antennas. It reject unwanted noise and have two nulls. It means you can't turn in antenna slightly to reject QRM from other station or something QRM which is come from other side of the direction.
And how about SWR? If you put one of these in the loft, how's it going to work?
Oh, it's working great. SWR, it's perfect because one-to-one, no problem at all. One thing you need when you change frequency, you need retune antenna, but it's not problem for CW or PSK mode because its bandwidth is just enough for working move in this frequency, I mean in this part of band.
Well, from funky antenna shape 1 to another funky antenna behind you that I could probably get my plumber to sort out for me. What's this we've got here?
Well, this antenna more efficient. This antenna equivalent of vertical quarter wave antenna with full ground counterpoise. It's double Q. It means this shape make more Q more efficient. It means more surface of this loop working for this antenna.
So who makes the antennas, Victor?
It's made by me, made in Scotland.
And that's the mag loop, or is that the muck loop?
No, it's mag loop.
It's mag loop.
I do have to ask, what is your little dog? Is she a Bichon?
She's a Bichon Frise.
Because I have one the same. And
that
what's
is a
yours called?
coincidence. Her name is Edith, but I call her Edie.
And, well, mine's Florence, so mine's got an old-fashioned name too. But, so she's doing a special job for you today, though?
Well, she hasn't got a coat on, but she wears a special coat, and she's allowed in most places, restaurants and everything.
And what does she do?
At home, she tells me the front door bell, the telephone, a timer for anything on like boiled eggs or anything, television program. When the smoke alarm goes off, she tells me and lies flat. She will not take me to a danger noise. Other noises she tells me and runs to it. So she's very clever.
So
and
she's a hearing dog, a trained hearing dog.
A trained hearing dog. She's 9 years old and I've had her for 8 years.
And so she looks after you because you're deaf?
That's right. When I take my hearing aids out, I cannot hear a thing. Not even her barking. That's why she has to touch me.
But she can't do CW, but you can.
Unfortunately, she doesn't know CW, but that's all I know.
So you're a very active amateur, though, on CW.
I am, yes, I love CW. It's my music. I love it.
And do you find, being hearing impaired, that that's a much easier mode for you to use?
Well, a voice, you have to get used to the accent, the speed of it, if it's a high or low. You have constant with CW. And it's, I like the pattern of it. It suits my brain.
Now, I notice on your badge it says FOC. What does that stand for?
That stands for First Class CW Operators Club. And I enjoy them all so much that I have got friends and contacts all over the world. Unfortunately, there's not many women members in the world, and I'm the only one in this country. But I've got lots of friends everywhere.
Well, great to meet you, and great to meet Edith as well.
Thank you very
much. And presumably that when you're in the zone on the Morse key there, you know, in the middle of a QSO, it's Edith's job to tell you if there's somebody at the door or if your dinner's burning.
That's right, yes, and I ignore her. Priorities.
All right, Heather, so you've got a brand new job at the RSGB, so I've heard. What does it involve?
Yes, I've been with the RSGB for 3 months now. I'm the new communications manager, totally new role. My job is to help improve communication, two-way communication with the RSGB, its members, the wider amateur radio community and the general public, and also obviously the clubs, very important part.
So recruitment for the RSGB is key to your role now, trying to get new members as well, and making communication with them too.
Recruitment's definitely one thing, yes, but also we want to make sure that we're talking effectively with the members that we already have, and also explaining what the RSGB does and even what amateur radio is to the public at large. So I'm going to be looking at doing some more press coverage, improving social media, providing information packs for clubs to use when they're interacting with the general public and putting on special events, and the whole gamut of communications both internally and externally.
And that's a good point. You mentioned the social media actually. I know that the RSGB has no presence currently, so are you now going to be flying the flag for Facebook, Twitter?
Definitely. I'm doing some research at the moment. I'm going around asking people on a survey while I've been here, and we're doing a wider survey amongst the members to find out how they use social media currently, what they would like from the RSGB for it, and also how they want to access their news, whether it is through social media or other ways. And we're going to use that information to inform what we do. But we are certainly developing a presence. There's a plan in place to do that, so watch this space and you'll find some things happening.
Fantastic, Heather, that's really good. It sounds like you've got a big job on your hands, so good luck with your new launch into your new career and social media at the RSGB.
Thanks very much, Mike. Nice to speak to you.
We're with Justin now, G0KSC, one of the great entrepreneurs in amateur radio, who in 4 years has built an incredible business that supplies antennas all over the world, not just to amateurs, but to all kinds of organisations. Justin, how did Innov Antennas get started?
It was around 8 years ago now when I put a website together and published designs for people to homebrew themselves, and that turned into a business a few years later. I've been designing, or had been designing antennas for other antenna companies around the world, and over the time the natural progression was for that to move into a business.
It became a very big business very quickly, didn't it? And you actually did your initial manufacturing in the States.
When Innov Antennas was set up originally, we were still supplying designs for Force 12, but everything was being made in the UK. The owners of Force 12 decided to retire, and we purchased a company, so we now have the two manufacturing facilities, one in Colorado in the US and one in Canvey Island in Essex.
Good old Canvey Island, I know it well. But well located, I guess, actually, the Canvey for getting stuff out within the UK and into Europe.
Very much so. And one of the other issues which we found, which wasn't an issue for us, but was more prevalent in the US, was the supply. In the UK, you can get everything next day, and a lot of times in the quantities that we're ordering, it's next day free delivery, whether it's aluminium or stainless steel supplies. With the US facility, it was a completely different scenario. So when you're picking, because we moved it from Texas to Colorado, it's a completely different kettle of fish, because it can be a couple of days on a truck for materials to come in. So to warrant buying from a mill, you have to buy in tons rather than in just a few hundred lengths.
So tell us about the process that led you to have such a range of different antennas and how you've built that reputation, because I guess there's two angles to it. There's the technical design, the electromagnetic design of the antenna, and it's got to be a good radiator, but to sell to amateurs and the government organisations, everyone else you sell to, structurally they've got to be tough, haven't they? The engineering has to be good.
Yeah, there are a number of designs which I came up with, the LFA or loop-fed Yagi, OPDES, which is opposing phase-driven element system, And all of these designs are produced in order that they give a very wide bandwidth. On smaller antennas, VHF, UHF and such likes, the mechanical side is not so much of an issue. As you get to HF and go further down, there are issues. Vibration is one which is called vortex shedding from very low constant wind speeds that cause stress fractures around the elements. So on certain bands, the taper schedules have to be much faster in order to avoid that. So it's not just out and out wind speeds. So we employ the services of K7NV, who produced the software called Yagi Stress, and he's a consultant to us to ensure that we get everything right mechanically as well as electromagnetically.
And we get the odd high winds here sometimes, but in America there's a lot of hazards for your antennas, including ice loading and stuff like that we don't get here.
Yeah, ice storms are being one of the worst, because you can quadruple or more the weight of each individual element when it's covered in ice. And then when that's accompanied with wind, then you can run into some real serious problems.
Let's have a quick look then at some of your antennas. First of all, you've got one here of the first design that you ever did.
Yes, that was the LFA Yagi, or Loop Fed Array Yagi, which is up on the mast here, which consists of a wide flat loop which is laid flat on the boom between the normal parasitic dipole type elements. The advantage of this is, well, there's several, but one is that all of the elements, including the feed points, are in line. Generally with a Yagi, the lower the impedance or the feed impedance, the better the performance, but that always requires a matching device to be added. With the LFA, the loop is adjusted both along the boom and its width to ensure a 50 ohm impedance is always met. So it's kind of a self-matching antenna. The impedance matching is in the driven element itself, and therefore there's no additional losses once a matching device is added after the event, as it were.
So what about this huge antenna over our heads here? This is a real monster. What does this one do?
Well, this antenna is the XR6C, which is, believe it or not, a compact version. This is the next generation of the XR5. The XR5 was 5.2 meters long and covered 20 through to 10 meters. This one is 3.5 meters long, has very, very similar performance, but has the bonus of 6 meters as well. So that's one feed point with all of those 6 bands. It was kind of a natural progression to add 6 meters for me, because when you look at most HF radios now, they have HF and 6. So why not have HF and 6 on the antenna too?
This next antenna is almost a competition question, isn't it? Because it's what's missing from this picture.
Right,
it's a Yagi, but not as we know it, Jim.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's got no reflector whatsoever. It's using the LFA Yagi driven element, the flat loop, but this time there's no reflector element in place. The feed point is in, or the director side of the elements, and what happens is the Yagi itself, or all of the elements, are involved in order to make what happens happen. The current and phase shift between the front and back of the loop is arranged by the other elements that are in place, the director elements, in order to produce front to back and gain. By moving the driven element that much further back on the boom, it lends itself to higher gain than you would normally expect for something of that length.
But really still good directivity and...
Yeah, very much so.
Loads.
Yeah, not quite as good as the standard LFA, but for someone that's seeking just really high gain for what they want to do, this is the ideal choice.
So, you fancy owning a pocket-sized dual-band FM handy, do you? Mike's here soon with the chance to win one. And Ofcom goes mobile at Hamfest. This is the FTDX1200, the latest addition to the Yaesu family of fine transceivers. It really looks great. The 4.3-inch TFT widescreen full-colour high-resolution display has a wide viewing angle, selectable display sources and a spectrum scope to give you all the information you need to get the best out of this amazing radio. In the March 2014 Radcom, Peter Hart said in his review, the FTDX1200 is another good all-round radio with good overall performance within its price bracket. Additional optional accessories make the FTDX1200 a truly flexible and high-performance radio. See the Yaesu FTDX1200 now at Martin Lynch & Sons, the world's favourite ham store. And remember, there's a cashback offer of £80 when you buy a new FTDX 1200 from any approved European Yaesu dealer until the end of December 2014. See the website for details. Even better, add TXF006 to the discount code box on the MLNS website and get free carriage to UK mainland and free Yaesu goodies.
Steve, what do Ofcom get out of being at a show like this?
Well, I think the real benefit is that people, the actual amateur community, realise that Ofcom aren't just some faceless people making up rules and conditions back in London. We are actual radio amateurs ourselves. I'm G7ENC. My colleague, or my manager, he's a very, very active amateur radio operator. When we come to events like this, we always come trying to represent a spectrum of Ofcom's work. I work in the Spectrum Policy Unit. I'm here with two colleagues who are here from the licensing team. I'm here with one of my colleagues who's actually a field investigation engineer, and he has a great deal of experience in actually how to deal with interference affecting amateur radio people. So we have we can provide quite a lot of advice as well. But the main benefit is that when people ring us up, they realise that they are often talking to another amateur radio person, and we are very, very sympathetic to a lot of the complaints that we get that we try and deal with.
Your call sign's G7ENT, so you sort of date back to the same sort of era as me, I think, when you got your licence. So you've been around a while, and the hobby is a lot less regulated than it used to be, isn't it? You know, you're a fairly light touch regulator compared with the old days, I think.
Oh yes, we are a light touch, but unfortunately we don't have all the resources that we used to have now, so we have to be more focused when investigating interference, etc. But yeah, things have changed, but it's the way of the world, isn't it?
What do you hear about most at a show like this from amateurs? I guess interference and noise levels is one thing that a lot of people are very concerned about.
There is the complaints about PLT devices seem to diminish quite significantly. I think in the early days PLT devices were causing a lot of concern, but now the newer generation they've got notch frequencies, they've got intelligent power control, so they only distribute sufficient power to reach the receiver, and they've also got standby in them, so they actually go into sleep when they're not in use. So we got, talking to my colleague who's actually from the field investigation team, he said he's been out to very, very few PLT devices. They are actually now becoming a thing of the past.
World Radio Conference coming up in 2015. Are you involved in the preparation for that?
I am. I'm involved in two areas. I'm involved in maritime and amateur. Agenda item 1.4 is an amateur allocation in the 5 megahertz band, and I've been quite involved in the discussions that are taking place for that. We fully support the agenda item, but we already do have a 5 megahertz allocation, so we are really supporting something we've already got. But the way things are going, there may not be quite the harmonisation in what's being proposed to what we've currently got, but that's something we may have to look at in the future. We're getting agreement in Europe bit by bit, but to try and get a worldwide allocation might be a different thing altogether. That's going to be hard work.
And of course there is a consultation document that Ofcom have out at the moment about changes to the amateur radio licence. Have you had much feedback on that here at the show?
We are getting a lot of useful feedback on that, yes, and quite contentious and quite balanced. That's the important thing, it is balanced. So we have we are getting some very, very good feedback, particularly on people's views on the use of regional secondary locators, and we're also getting some very, very good feedback on club call signs. You know, has been a problem for many years where a club call sign is authorised through an individual member of the club. They hold an OV. If there's then actually a dispute in the club, the person walks away with a club call sign, and there's nothing we can do to force them to give that back. So we are looking at changing the powers there, that the club call sign will always be with an official in the club. And I think that's been very, very warmly welcomed. I've had several comments at this the Hamfest saying how much they welcome that.
And the last thing to stress is, this isn't a foregone conclusion, it is a consultation, so you do want to hear from people.
It is a consultation, we do want to hear from people. Ofcom have to be very open and transparent. We're subject to a freedom of information requests, so we can't fudge deals. We have to see, we ask the questions and we have to publish the answers.
Well, the big question coming up in a few moments, but first Mike's talking to a very familiar face at Hamfest.
This is the crazy mayhem on the ground, Martin, the hardest working man in show business.
I'm still here.
Actually doing it on the stand.
I'm trying.
At Hamfest.
Yeah.
talking to customers,
shaking hands,
meeting and greeting old friends. How has the rally been for you so far?
Very good. Tony, there you go. He's just taking over that poor fella.
Customer.
Yeah, it's been very good. The big difference with the Hamfest is the amount of effort that the organisers, i.e. the club, puts into putting this show on. It makes it much easier for us. You've seen the size of our stand. To shift all this lot here each time is a lot of effort, but we enjoy it. I've got a lot of staff here today. Saturday's always a lot quieter, but no, the show's great. If you haven't come, you should do. It's the main event of the year.
But what's really good here is you are hands-on with the customers, and I guess they're asking you a lot of questions.
Yeah, you've got to remember, I've dealt with these guys since the late 70s when I was with Bernie and Brenda at Amateur Radio Exchange. So they're very familiar faces to me. We're all getting a lot older, a lot older, but that's part of the fun of it, really. And that's what you don't get when you're web ordering or mail ordering. Yes, I still speak to people. I enjoy speaking to customers on the phone, but coming here, and you pointed out, I shake hands with people. I've known them for a long time. If you haven't been to Hamfest before, come to it. Friday and Saturday, there's a lot of room. All the aisles aren't all close together, so you're not bashing into people. It's brightly lit, the car parking's easy. They've absolutely got it right, so 10 out of 10 to the organisers.
Food's good, the refreshment's good.
Yeah, and they're a friendly bunch of people, especially on the MLNS stand.
That's almost like an advert.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
Just before he runs off for lunch, I knew I had to catch up with the second hardest working man in show business. This is Richard, sales manager at Martin Lynch & Sons, and my very best new friend.
Hey.
I'll tell you why he's my new friend, actually. He could be your friend too, because he's going to talk me through what we've got as a prize in TX Factor's brand new competition.
Yep.
What have you got for me?
We have a Yaesu VX3.
Wow.
One I prepared earlier.
Okay. So, what have we got with the VX3?
Okay.
Basics, what do we do?
Size is its key thing.
Okay.
Very, very neat. It's a VHF, UHF, so it's a dual band.
Pocket size.
Handheld transceiver. Pocket size.
Go on then, prove it.
There you go.
You're right.
Indeed. Very, very neat.
You've read the script.
I have.
Okay.
Very neat.
So
VHF, UHF as a transceiver.
Yep.
A wideband receive as well.
Okay.
So very handy if you took it off on holiday, for instance.
Yep.
You could listen to regular commercial transmission stations and generally have a listen around on the band.
Yeah, exactly. Ideal for holidays, as you say.
Yep.
Easy on the luggage and a very, very feature-packed little radio. So if I was going to buy this now,
yep.
Don't have to tell me rally special prices.
No. Today's price.
Today's price to you, sir.
Our standard Martin Lynch & Sons special price would be $129.99.
All right, so the competition question, if you'd like to win the Yaesu VX3, is this. In episode 4, we reviewed the new Yaesu repeater system. What's the name of it? Send your emails to info@txfactor.co.uk, and on the main website you'll find all the terms and conditions that apply to the competition. And good luck.
We're on the ICOM stand now, and I'm with Sam Taylor-Nobbs, who's going to introduce me to the rig of the show, I think. And it's so special, we can't even touch it.
Yeah, indeed.
Sam, what's the radio we got here?
Hi, Bob. Yeah, well, we've got the new ICOM 7850. This is our 50th anniversary radio for ICOM Incorporated. I'm pleased to say that we're celebrating that this year, so 1964 to 2014. And this is really the pinnacle of everything that is ICOM, of where we've got today. It's a fantastic piece of equipment. We're very, very, very pleased to have the opportunity to show it at this show. And this is a first.
How many of these are being made, Sam?
150 worldwide, and that's it.
So where do you get them from?
Well, they're coming from, obviously, ICOM Japan are making them, and all the dealers, if they're out the UK, they will be available. Although I have to say, I think they're pretty much all sold.
I was just going to make you an offer for it. What would it cost me?
Well, the price is to be announced.
I thought that might be the
like
case.
anything like this, is a limited edition, and it's really about the heritage, it's about the product, It's not always about price.
Are they all in this bling finish?
Yes,
as well?
well, yeah, bling, that's an interesting word. Yes, they are.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Piano black with gold. It's very, very unique and very special.
For the 50th anniversary.
Indeed, indeed.
Now, we know this is a very special radio because you've got it under a Perspex case here. In fact, I was expecting people to abseil down on ropes, break all the laser beams and take it away as they're so rare. Can we take the Perspex cover off and touch it?
Well, as it's you, Bob, and the TX Factor, I think we can do that for you.
Yes. Come on then.
Okay.
No, actually, I won't. I won't take the cover off. You can.
I should really have some gloves on.
Yeah. Wow. Now, with the cover off, you can see that is beautiful.
It's quite something. We're very pleased, and being so unique. And it's even got the has a plate here, as you can see, so signed by Mr. Anui himself. And every radio that is manufactured will have its own number out of 150. So this is 000 of 150.
Wow.
So it's quite something to have and quite something to say you have. And it will be quite a club to be a member of worldwide, and quite something to think that you're one of 150 with such a radio.
David, what's good about coming to Hamfest for the weekend for Kenwood?
This is our #1 show of the year. It's now it's the only 2-day show we do, and this is where we meet all our customers.
Does coming to a show like this generate many sales?
It does. We don't ourselves sell. We're representing, so we're demonstrating. So any customers who come to see us are safe. They're not going to have to spend any money. But all our dealers are here. They'll do the deals for customers.
So this is a real great way to network with your captive audience, basically.
Yes. This is where we see people that probably wouldn't be in touch with us all year round, but they come to the show, they expect to see the product we have here, they expect to talk to our staff and find out what's going on. When I first started with Kenwood, which was 20 years ago, we probably had 5 2-day shows a year. This is the only one. So this is our flagship show, and very good value for money for us.
Well, us radio hams are a little bit of a fussy bunch. We like to have a little fiddle and a poke and a prod before we spend our money. What's the bit of equipment at Hamfest this weekend that's creating the most buzz?
Well, I think we're standing right by it, coincidentally.
What, as if by magic?
As if by magic, yes. TS990. It's our top-end product. So you're talking about a piece of equipment that costs perhaps £6,000. And you talked about being fussy. I mean, I was an amateur before I joined Kenwood. I will be afterwards as well. And yes, we're fussy. We're spending a lot of money on a piece of equipment that's going to last us 20 years, 30 years. You know, I have no problem at all with somebody coming, spending an hour talking through the facilities, because this sort of product does work. It's worth it. It's logically laid out. If you work through the manual, you work through the radio, you understand how to use it, you get the benefit.
I'd probably be lucky to own a car that was worth £6,000, let alone buy a radio like this. But if I was going to spend £6,000 on a big beast, what would I be getting for my money with this Kenwood?
Well, number one, you're getting operating pleasure. That may sound a bit of a cliche, but it's a fun radio to use. Customers I've spoken to who bought them actually enjoy using them. It's not just a large bunch of technology. But looking at the hardware, you've got HF6, 200 watts output, 2 receivers, but you've also got the technology to, how can I put it, fine-tune the receive audio, fine-tune the transmit audio.
Well, it certainly is a beautiful beast. Big buttons, very clear, looks very easy to use. Let's hope you may shift a few at the rally this weekend. Thank you.
Now, when you're at a show like this, you've got to look out for the freebies, and I've just spotted the Yaesu hat. Very good for keeping the sun off my bald spot when we go outside. And also, of course, an opportunity when you're at a show like this to meet the radios that you've seen in the magazines and you've seen online, and sort of get up close and touch them and see what they're actually like. Of course, pretty familiar with that one because I've got one of those in the car, but it's nice to be able to not only see the radios but talk to the experts on the stand and find out more about them, give you feedback. What features would you like to see on Yaesu radios in the future? These are the kind of things you can tell the guys on the stand. But I've got something I'd like to share with you. I don't know if Father Christmas watches TX Factor, but if he does, this is the radio I want. Come with me. I realise that Father Christmas actually isn't the person I need to ask for this. Somehow I've got to talk the senior management at Macready Towers into the idea that what we really need is a Yaesu FTDX 5000. Maybe I could get Martin to lend me one.
Whoa, 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 are you spending money?
Maybe. What have you bought?
Well, I've just got myself a great deal on a brand new N-type connector.
Don't go mad.
No.
I've succumbed. It's only a Yaesu FTDX 3000. Oh, hang on a minute, Martin. Sorry, it's my phone. Hello, darling. Yeah. No, we've had a lovely time. Spent any money? No. No, I haven't spent any money. No. All right. See you later. Sorry, Martin.
TX Factor is brought to you in association with Martin Lynch & Sons, the world's favourite ham store, and Yaesu Muse & Co. Japan.